celebration that is going to happen over the next half hour, so much so that the mayor is staying because he really wants to listen to you guys. So thank you. Yeah. So I'd like to introduce Adam Davis. Adam Davis is going to sort of lead us and moderate us through a series of questions that we can debate, I suspect, at our tables. Is that kind of what you're thinking? Okay, all right. So I'm going to turn this over to Adam, and thank you, everyone. I think you want to...
Sure, thanks. Thank you. And just maybe everyone could join me in thanking Nancy and Rachel and Paul one more time, and V. Lynn. How's it going? Good? Okay, so Paul was asked about his goals for the session today and the 50th anniversary, and he talked about 3 verbs. He said celebrate, innovate, and instigate. I think we're going to use the next 50 minutes or so to work on the last of those, instigate. And we're going to try to instigate really through a combination of reflection and connection. So the hope is to think about what we're doing, why we do what we do, and to talk with each other and listen to each other and see if that helps us walk out of here feeling more ready to keep doing this work and maybe even to do it with renewed energy. That's the sort of big goal. So it looked, based on the table tents and where people were sitting, like in many cases you were sitting with folks you work with. Is that about right? All right, thank you. So what I want to ask is, I want to follow Nancy's encouragement to move up front, and I want to ask everyone now to find a table that's not just people you know. So I would like you to introduce, I want to give us a few minutes for this, and when you go, I want you to introduce yourselves in the following way. First of all, be bold about going to a table full of people you don't know. All right? When you get to that table, and hopefully you're mixing up, I want you to just say what your name is, and then a word or a phrase that comes to your head when you hear the word poverty. Don't explain the word, don't explain the phrase, but that's how I want you to introduce yourselves. Okay? I'm Adam, and a word that comes to my head when I hear poverty is, all right? And listen close, and I'm going to ask us to talk about that after. So please take a few minutes and make that happen. Thank you. Don't be shy. You guys too, feel free to jump around. Just this. Thank you. I have no control. You do, but something short, a word or a phrase. If you're at a table that still needs more time, can you just raise your hand if you still need more time at your table? All right. So can you guys quickly move, just a word each? Thank you. It doesn't mean the other tables can't keep talking. You guys are good? All right, thank you. So I'm going to interrupt, and I hope what I'll be doing over the next 40 minutes is interrupting a lot. The goal here really is to get us talking to each other and thinking about this work. And we'll do that really through a combination of small group, paired, and even a little bit of whole group discussion. And I want to start just by asking that as people introduce themselves, did anybody hear a word that particularly caught them from someone else at the table? Maybe say it loud and I'll repeat it, just as a way to get us thinking about what this thing is, poverty, that we're here to talk about and work on. Any words that caught you? Privilege as the flip side and reminder about poverty. Okay, thank you. Other words that caught people? Invisibility. Cyclical. Here too, it sounds like. Voices, voiceless, and intersectionality. All right. Other words that surprised you or you felt yourself nodding to. Action. Can happen to anyone. Fight. This is a wide range of things already in response to one word, poverty. A couple more, and then we'll move forward a little bit. A couple more words that caught you or surprised you. Resilient. Any other ones for starters here? Okay. Again, that's a lot of words to start thinking about this thing, poverty, which for 50 years, one organization that we heard about today that's been very effective, continues to fight. Many other organizations continue to fight. The question about looking forward 50 years, probably poverty will still be here. Probably there will be groups of people like us still trying to fight it. Hopefully today we can make that fight at least something we're thinking more about as we leave. What I want to ask with our work in mind, since it looks like many of us work on this, I'm going to ask you to pair up with someone you don't know for just about 5 minutes. And I want you to think of one time in your work over the past several months when you felt like, yes, in this specific instance, my work to address the challenges that poverty presents, my work is clicking. It is meaning something. It's making some meaningful impact on the goal that I'm after. Okay? If you're a student and you're studying poverty rather than doing your work on it, then what in your research? But the question really is one very specific instance when your work felt like, yes, I'm getting at the challenges that poverty presents. And I'd like you to talk about what was going on right there and how you knew that you were sort of hitting on all cylinders right then. Is that a clear question? So if you want to get up, move to another table, but I'm going to interrupt again in about 5 minutes. Make sure that both of you, or in some cases all three of you, get a chance to talk, please. Thank you. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and try to slowly interrupt. Sorry. Sort of sorry to interrupt. I want to again get some of these out, and maybe not the whole thing, but something that you heard or maybe overlap between what you said and someone else said. What was going on that felt right? We'll try to get a few of these out because the next thing I want to think about is challenges or obstacles to feeling like that all the time. And before getting there, maybe let me, just by a show of hands, was it easy to find a moment that felt right? If it was, can you raise your hand? Was it difficult to find a moment that felt right? That's close to half and half, which may be dispositional, right? I don't know. That's interesting. All right, let's get some of the specifics out. What was going on, either in what you heard or in your own example?
Yeah, I was speaking with Rocio right here, and she shared her story, which is recently published in Willamette Weekly, about what was his name? Josh, who didn't quite know what the future would look like beyond what he'd seen himself, and was able to get accepted into Harvard recently instead of going to a local community college and full scholarship. Somewhat, yeah. I mean,
So, and what felt right? I mean, it sounds like Harvard, just you hear the word Harvard and it sounds like things feel right, right? I mean, but is that what it was, the outcome of the work, or was it something else that felt right about it? Okay, I'm going to repeat. What she said was the future for him is better. The outlook is better. Therefore, a sign something right happened. All right, let's get several more and really try to go, what are the conditions that helped you know something right is going on? Helping people connect or seeing people connecting with each other. Okay, great. Thank you. Being able to meet people where they are. Can you say another sentence about what that looked like? Could people hear that in back? Yeah? Okay, providing opportunities, especially people disproportionately affected by poverty. Wherever they are, still hitting them there. Other things that just let you know. And I should say that earlier, I think this room was characterized briefly as full of young, earnest people. You don't need to be earnest right now if you don't want to. That's just permission to talk about what you got going on. Yeah. All right, great.
What Z told me was a story about how she managed to connect a couple complicated programs to one person's life and really make a difference for her, being able to actually take control of her life financially. So that story of making the machinery work for one real person is pretty powerful.
Okay, so taking programs, and that goes back to what Nancy said, I guess, about build programs, but connecting it to one person, and specifically in the area of finances, it sounds like. That's very specific. And again, it's related, I think, to a better outlook. As specific as you can be, other folks with when you know it's working. Seems important to orient off. Don't be shy. Thank you. Okay, and again, it's about one person. Let me just ask, how many of your examples involved one individual? And show by hands if it involved one individual. Okay, so a small number. Some of the folks that it was something else, what was going on that worked, that you knew? Just so that we can understand if it's not that single connection. Anybody game to describe it? Great. We'll go here and then back here. Or just as loud as you can. Okay, the capacity of the health department has increased, which can seem abstract, but you're able to see it and feel like this is working. Yeah. Great. You feel like it's fitting together. So can we talk a little bit about challenges? Is that all right to do? Challenges to wrap around or challenges to affecting that individual the way you're talking about, challenges to being able to see the impact on one person. What do you feel like, because it seems like all of us, whether we're comfortable voicing it in a big, strange room with a funny carpet, whether we're comfortable doing that or not, we can all point to examples in our work. That's probably why we do the work. What are the challenges that you feel in your day-to-day work to having that feeling more? The feeling of, yes, this is working, this is working. And what I'd like to do is if we can identify a few challenges and see where the overlap is, maybe then at our tables we can talk a little bit about how we can work on those specific challenges. But let's get a couple of those out. Thank you. You said compassion fatigue? So the internal challenge, you're talking about for yourself? You can wear down. The reason for the work. Okay, compassion fatigue. Thank you. A long-term perspective dampening short-term successes. I think it does, but I want to ask you to say one more sentence, meaning... You back up enough, it can be overwhelming. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we have 3 hands here, so why don't we start there? You got it. Yeah. The systems view and how do we address them. I know for me, I don't understand most of the things that impact my life. And then there are so many other lives I'm trying to work on those. How do I even understand where to go there? Yeah. Okay. So the term itself, poverty, and what it applies to numerically in part you're talking about? The line, the levels, yeah. And then
fundraising, keeping donors invested in your message.
so not just your fatigue, but donors' fatigue with the message. Other challenges that you haven't heard yet that you think are important. I mean, this is a group of people right now in this room. You guys are committing to fighting poverty more than many people in the world, and you're committing every day. Let's keep talking about the challenges a little bit more. So fighting is a challenge because it connotes a different kind of activity than what you think this actually is, or? Yeah, we want kids to come together. We wouldn't want kids to fight. So we're talking about all. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so rebuilding a system is a different way to think about it from fighting something and trying to defeat it. We'll go here. Okay, you're in for a year. This is a long-term project. Yeah, great. Yeah, that sounds almost like fate, but it's close to fate. Timing, everything aligning. How do you make it so, especially if it's hard to understand, again, all those different forces? Yeah, Z. So even at the table we were sitting at, there were four of us, or four of you, three of you from Roseburg, two of you currently in Vista, one of you coming to the end of a year, 2 months left, Emma just there for the summer, just started 2 weeks ago, and one of you an alum, done with Vista. Okay, good that you're at the same table, but hard given the staggered frame and the constant turnover. This is a challenge with AmeriCorps. Sit a year, give a year, change a life, then what's next? It's also the criticism levied against Teach for America a lot. What comes next? Okay, so we're looking at lots of different challenges. I wonder if it makes sense to think a little bit about some of the specifics and how you combat them, and if we can do this at our tables. And I think I'm going to try to offer 3 kinds of challenges, if I can try, based on what I just heard. One is beginning with compassion fatigue, the internal. And maybe at your table decide which of these 3 you want to take up, and then we'll talk a little bit as a whole group. So first challenge is kind of internal. How do I stay motivated, energized, committed to this work, given that it's tough and it requires a lot? Thank you for writing this down, if you are. So first challenge, internal. Second, systemic. How do we fight systemic challenges? Fight's the wrong word, I apologize. How do we shape the system in ways that feel most constructive? And on this one, please be as concrete as you can. What do we do to change the system so that it moves in the direction we want it to go? And the third, maybe, someone have a suggestion for the third theme that could be taken up as a challenge based on what we've heard? Seems like wraparound is related to system. What about just understanding the problem? Can we say that? Knowledge. Maybe knowledge and awareness so that it's not just us we're talking about, but other people. Okay? So we've got internal, systemic, and knowledge and awareness. And what I'd like you to do is really take 10 minutes. You can decide at your table, do you want to talk about one of these or all 3? How do you combat the challenges that any of these 3 present? Okay? Is that a clear request? I will interrupt you in 10 minutes. Thanks.
Gradually in between things, put away things you're not needing. Yeah, I can get a lot done in 2 minutes. Thanks. Otherwise, I do it at the end of the show. I forgot. I didn't occur to me. I don't know. I'm enjoying listening to what they have to say.
All right, I think I'm going to try to interrupt again. Meaningful eye contact suggests I should interrupt. If I can. So I just heard the question asked at one of the tables, how often do Vistas see each other? What I hear embedded in that question is that the more we talk to each other, the more we see each other, the more we'll be plugged into the work and the better will be the work that we do. Now, I could be wrong, but that's what I hear in that question. So that's part of the reason I feel guilty for interrupting, because here you are connecting at tables, maybe with people you don't know, but that are doing similar work. Let me just say that as someone walking around, it's good to see. It's good to see a room full of people doing the work you're doing, talking to each other about what's going into the work. I want to ask about the challenges for a minute. And the way I'd like to do it is we had three. Some of the tables maybe moved to all three. Some took just one. But if we could go, and we don't need to hear from every table on every one, but if you can name one or two specific tactics or strategies for dealing with these challenges, that might help all of us. So maybe we'll start with one we started with, which was internal motivation. How do you deal with the challenge of that motivation sometimes running dry? And a couple specifics would be helpful. Thank you.
At our table, it was shared that if you start by giving 150% or going 150 miles an hour in the beginning, you run out of steam and you burn yourself out. So to pace yourself. If you're in for the long haul, 20, 40 years, you got to make sure to take care of yourself now so that in 40 years you're still going.
Okay, so and that gets back to the earlier comment, I think, about duration, how long the project is. So pace yourself. And just because you use the phrase the long haul, can I recommend a book from about 50 years ago called The Long Haul? Anybody here know the book The Long Haul by Miles Horton? No? The Highlander Institute, huge civil rights mobilizing organization. It's called The Long Haul, Miles Horton. If you're looking for something to read that's related to your work to help you think about that, that's just one quick recommendation based on that phrase. Okay, so pace yourself. A couple other concrete suggestions when you're thinking about the internal. So build self-care into the culture of your organization. What does self-care at an organization that's working this hard, as I imagine you all are, with limited resources, what does self-care look like? A couple concrete examples. Okay, so recovery time, pay attention to how much you're working, or you'll burn out. Track it. Yeah, thank you.
Our executive director last year had a yoga day where she brought in like an instructor and we did yoga in the morning. It was really simple, but it helped relax everyone.
So for some people, yoga is self-care. For me, it feels like self-abuse, but that's okay. Other. Yeah, so solidarity events often, I just want to add a little suggestion. Instead of thinking, what do we have to get done by 3:30? But what's the big project? What are we after? Why are we doing it? To step back just a little bit can make it easier to feel that connection. Thank you. Step back a little bit, communicate about what it is you need and where that overlaps with other folks you're working with. All right, one more example of this way to cultivate self-care in this work that can drain you. Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, any work that we enter into because we care about the work, there's a great likelihood of burnout. Food helps. Breaks help. You're actually more productive if you step back a little bit, to a degree. I mean, one message here is make sure that the dessert plate is empty when we leave this room. I think that's fairly clear. I think I want to shift anything else with the internal that you, yeah, thank you. It's another version of solidarity. We're all working hard at this. Acknowledge it. Say it out loud. I'm in a staff of 10, and I'm not particularly good at that. Yesterday, I actually almost accidentally sent an email out to everybody, thanked 2 people by name. One of the people it made a huge impact on. I never think to do that. It was an accident. It turned out to be a good thing. Name it. Can we go from the internal, which we actually do have a good degree of control over, to systemic? Great. A quick hand up for systemic. That's good news. So understand stakeholders and then see where you can what's already set up that you can work with. That understand stakeholders is hard. Maybe try to put yourself in the place of. It helps with the second thing you mentioned. All right. Seems like a start. Other things with the systemic challenges that this work is predicated on. So I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. It sounded like you're saying humanize systems. That's what a lot of systems are. It's human beings doing things in their place. The more it can turn into relationships between human beings, the easier it is to navigate. The more you can get help. And it can feel like, oh, I know, I can talk to her, instead of, I don't know, it's just the way it's set up. Great. I think you said emotion, knowledge, and kind of shared purpose, shared sense of the big goal. Great. With a little bit, yeah. Great. So just an example, in Portland right now, housing. And the question of equity around housing is a tough one. And it's true in a lot of cities. Minneapolis, for some reason, things are working in Minneapolis. paying attention to that. What's going on there? How can we make that happen here? Is there a particularly successful Vista site somewhere else nearby or not too far away where I can talk to someone there who I know from one of the gatherings and figure out what little thing can we tweak that's going to change it? So, yeah, comparative stuff can be helpful. I want to shift us towards the third one, and then I want to have us close. And so with the shift, I guess knowledge or awareness was the third one, and I wasn't sure if we were talking about knowledge or awareness for ourselves or for other people. But I wonder if any of the tables talked about strategies or tactics to deal with the challenge that knowledge or awareness might present. Making it personal. Knowledge can sound abstract. How do we bring it home? Yeah, knowledge is intellectual. It's not what only moves people, yeah.
On the flip side of that, taking the pressure off of personal stories and reactions and showing how things fit into a big system.
So that's the challenge, right? It's the one person who you've helped, but that person is reflective of this huge system. I come from an organization called Oregon Humanities, weird name for that organization. We use the humanities as tools to mediate between the things you're talking about. So for example, when I came in here, I didn't know what the room was exactly going to look like or what the panel was going to discuss. What I brought, the tool I brought, aside from a sense of questions, was I brought a short poem as a way of trying to mediate between the systemic and the personal. I'm not going to inflict it on you now, but I am going to offer it to you if you're interested when you leave. It's real short, and for me, it helps me think about work like this. Long-term work, hard, not sure if I'm making it, but somehow that can both make room for the personal, like talk about it with someone you work with. See what it means to you. It can make room for the personal without it being you bearing your soul in some very vulnerable way. You have this external thing to look at and still be talking about what brings you to the work. Yeah. Great. Old school stuff can work. Old school organizing, talk to people. Yeah, talking face to people, but thinking, what can we learn not just from comparative models in other places, but also in other times? Great. Here's what I want to do. We've been talking about challenges and tactics. I just want to ask as we go, I want to ask everyone to take a minute and think, as you think about this work, as you think about the work of addressing the challenges poverty presents, what is one thing that makes you hopeful? And I want to just get a few of these out. If we had a little more time and a roving mic, we'd go around the room real quickly. One thing that makes you hopeful. And maybe let's get a good handful before we call it good here. So please raise your hand if you want to weigh in with us. Thank you. The people in the room. One good answer. The people in the room, yeah. The Affordable Care Act. Okay, so, and already we're starting with the distinction we just had. Systems, individuals. Other things that make you hopeful in this work. Please don't be shy here. Thank you.
That we're all people and we all hold very similar values, and that we may express those values differently, but in reality, we all want the same thing. We all want people to be happy. We all want like this kind of like we have this vision of like world peace. We just see it differently, and so trying to find some way to communicate the two.
Great. If we keep bumping back to the big thing we're after, more likely that we'll find. Yeah. The practice of mentorship makes you hopeful. That's nice and real specific and a great reminder, yeah. Okay, groups of people finding really creative and impactful ways to collaborate. See. Yeah, in a way, narrow it to one. Maybe that's enough to open it up. Couple other things that make you hopeful? Folks that haven't weighed in that want to talk briefly about what makes them hopeful in this work? Thank you.
I guess it's like knowledge of history that, it's been bad before in this country for low-income people, but good things have come of that. And pretty much Congress has always been full of idiots, and managed to overcome, so do it again.
Okay, so there are signs of progress no matter what's going on in the bodies we elect ourselves. Yeah.
We spoke a lot about the idea of chipping away at something, and we talked about, I don't know if anybody heard Obama speak this morning, but that ever so often there is a lightning bolt that makes change, and if we get so lucky and we continue chipping away, it might seem like it was fate or luck, but it was like hundreds of thousands of people going back decades and decades to set up this line to where we are today, and some of the problems that we're looking at now, whether it be in our individual vista sites or the state or the nation, the more we can stay committed. And even though it's like a teeny tiny tick on the top, we never know when like that lightning bolt's going to come through and make a big difference.
So keep chipping away. Maybe a lightning bolt. There's also, it sounds to me like confidence that there will be if we keep working at it, that many people keep working at it together. Yeah.
That was just making me think about Obama and how freaking awesome it is that our president was a community organizer. So amazing. And that we have a Jesuit who's a pope. Okay, so both of those things, world leaders on the world stage who like are in our corner, just makes me really happy. Gives me a lot of hope.
And so that these leaders in positions of great power used to be in positions like this. It seems to me that that's hopeful that they're there. Also hopeful about, prospects, the people in the room. I think I want to leave it there. I want to thank you for your work and wish you well in the work. I think we're formally good. Thanks a lot. I don't know who to give the mic to, so I'm going to say keep talking and have a good day. Stop it, drop it.